Dynamite is it's in the books. It happened. It was a thing that occurred on our television set. A lot of Renee Paquette tonight. This was the Renee Paquette show. She was in every other scene. If it wasn't a match, she was involved with it. Unreal how much. She's finally earning that paycheck. She's finally earning that paycheck. All right. We got a lot of news and notes to get through. We're going to do All In. We're going to do that during the live stream, which is also going to be a Q&A. So we're going to do, because they continuously changing the card for All In because they don't know what's going on. And if they don't know, then I can't know either. But let's get into news and notes. First, things that don't require me to read any articles. Edge, the rumors that PW Torch is saying that Edge gave WWE his list of demands and money that he wants to be re-signed, and WWE declined to do so. And now there's an internal belief that he's going to go to All Elite Wrestling. This is from PW Torch, which means it's from Wade Keller, and I don't believe a word of it. Let's say that it does happen, though, in some off chance and in some bizarre universe that Edge decides he's going to go to AEW. Again, don't care. Is it a big deal for AEW? Yes. For WWE, kind of. But again, WWE's been through this before, where, when WCW was around, and to a later extent when TNA was around, a lot of their older talent jumped ship and left, because WWE was like, I don't really see, we're not pushing you as a top guy right now, or we just don't feel like the money is right now, and you just let him go. I mean, it would suck for that to be Edge, because he's never wrestled anywhere else. It's one thing when it's Mick Foley, or when it's Ric Flair, people who worked the territories and been around for a while. It particularly sucked when it was Kurt Angle. It sucked when it was Christian. It'll certainly suck if it's Edge, because those guys grew up in front of the WWE audience. They mean something to that audience, and it would suck if he was to leave. But to think that they would be losing out on something is like, not really, because WWE doesn't really use Edge in top storylines anymore anyway. This last run was basically him working main events against upper mid-card talent. So he's not even in a major feud or anything like that. He's not coming off of, the hottest thing he's ever done. He's coming off a feel-good moment with Sheamus. But I don't believe it anyway. I don't think they probably have even decided what he wants to do yet. Because he says, he's been saying in interviews, he's not sure. So I tend to believe what comes out of his mouth and that he's not sure and he hasn't figured it out yet, over the words of somebody who's probably listening to whispers and saying that, oh yeah, he's going to leave because they shot down his deal. It's like they're probably still negotiating. This kind of stuff takes time. Even if WWE turned down the initial deal, they probably are going to pitch a counter offer. But then they also have to take into account what Edge is worth these days and what he would be doing. But I think a lot of people want the whole thing with Edge and Christian to happen in AEW more than they're letting on. But I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, because I don't know what the future holds. But I can say is I don't believe it. I ain't necessarily believing it. So we're going to move on. All right, so let's talk about this Tony Khan interview. Oh my goodness. When he talked in the Hollywood Reporter, he talked about he can't make guys get along. And then he also, in two separate interviews, claimed that AEW is the #1 market leader in professional wrestling in the United Kingdom. So let's talk about both of those things. First, he can't make everybody get along. So Tony Khan was asked about the sort of rivalries going on in the locker room. And he says, I want the best wrestlers here in AEW. I want the best roster. And there may be some of them that don't get along with each other backstage or on TV. It's not ideal, but it's a reality. And I can't make everyone get along. I'm not sure it's necessarily even in the best interest of pro wrestling for everybody to get along. But ideally, everybody's going to be able to focus on their matches and putting on the best shows for the fans. And I think that's what we've been doing. We've had really strong ratings, so even though wrestlers backstage hate each other and don't want to be friends with each other, I think we all agree this is a really exciting time for the company. And it's a really exciting time for the wrestling business and for the wrestling fans. So basically a nothing answer, except I can't make everybody get along, which is a fact. You can't make everybody get along. But the rest of it was virtually a non-answer. He says he's not sure if it's in the best interest of the business for everybody to get along. Considering he formed this company around a bunch of guys who were friends, and then hired those friends' family members, and then hired the friends of those family members, and built this entire company off nepotism, which is typical of pro wrestling territories. That's what they do. It doesn't quite seem as if he's been a person who says that he's about business and not everybody needs to get along, because he passed up on some really decent signings that he could have had because those guys didn't get along with various other people in his promotion. So it is what it is on that term, but at least he's, I guess, coming to grips with it. Like he's kind of answering the question where he can't make everybody get along, but people are going to have to coexist, which is, I guess, the best answer you can expect from the guy. I mean, what do you want him to do? You know, we've said 100 times how weak he is and all that kind of stuff. He's doing the best that he can while trying to maintain friendships with everybody who's involved, and he's stuck in the middle, you know? So that's unfortunate because he should be above this stuff, but he's not. Here's the more interesting thing. Him saying that AEW is the market leader. So he says this: if we can go into some major places and take the lead, then that's really a huge step for us. And right now in the UK, AEW is the industry leader in pro wrestling. We've set the box office records. We have by far the biggest TV audience every week, thanks to our partnership with ITV, which has a great history in the wrestling business. The average person in the UK knows ITV is the home of pro wrestling going back many years to World of Sport. And now AEW, thanks to the great viewership we get on ITV every week, is by far the most watched wrestling promotion across our shows Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. Now, I skipped the part where Hollywood Reporters mentions that WWE is on a paid network, which is BT Sport, which is now a part of TNT Sports, which is a joint venture between BT and Warner Brothers Discovery, and a paid network. So it's becoming a running gag on this channel where we talk about money versus reach. And one of the things that has been discussed is that, you know, if you go all streaming or all cable, you lose reach. And WWE just happened to hit the jackpot when it comes to having SmackDown on Fox, where they got paid a lot of money, and they got to be on network TV, which means they got the reach and the money at the same time, where usually you have to sacrifice one or the other. Now, in this situation, Tony Khan is talking about, hey, we by far get more viewers, without mentioning that they're on paid, they're on free television, while WWE is on paid television, which means that AEW has greater reach. Similar to TNA, when they were the number one wrestling promotion in the UK for the most part. But the difference here is that he's talking about the live event, the gates, and stuff like this. That apparently All In is set to make $10 million in gate figures. And apparently that's more than Clash at the Castle. Because, look, WrestleNomics said that it's $8 million. I went to WWE's financial reports, and I did not see Clash at the Castle $8 million. $8 million. So maybe that's just an estimate of how much they grossed at that event. But let's say, for the sake of argument, because at least we know where to source that information, that is $8 million. I still don't think that's enough to be considered the market leader in the UK. Because you're still not making the most money out of the UK. You're running a very different venue than the one WWE ran. WWE never ran Wembley Stadium, but they have run the UK several times and made tons of money each time they've done it. You run this thing once, made a bunch of money, and then there's virtually no plans to do it again, as far as we know. Now, maybe it'll be a yearly thing, this whole All In at Wembley. I would be perfectly fine with that if it was a yearly tradition. I like traditions. Like I thought maybe every 10th WrestleMania should be at Madison Square Garden because that's the home base of WWE. But apparently WWE is like, hey, if somebody's willing to pay us for it, then screw that. Screw tradition. It's all about money. So I will say it's a little early to be calling yourself the market leader in the UK because you had one big event there, just one, and maybe continuously do that. And then maybe you can call yourself the number one wrestling promotion in the UK or something like that in terms of being the market leader. But if you have one show that if 80,000 people do show up, and trust me, we will be watching. We will be looking for bald spots in that audience. We will be waiting patiently for this audit that he said he's going to do. He claims that he's going to allow an audit of the tickets after All In to get an accurate figure, because they're just throwing around this 80,000 and this 80,000 distributed, this 80,000 sold. We don't know, and we won't know until probably a few weeks after the event, after the tally is put in, and then probably somebody's going to have to contact who owns that stadium. Is the stadium public? Is it a public stadium? Maybe the people in the UK know, because I don't know if it's a public stadium or not, but usually for fire reasons, they keep track of how many people are in the building. So or at least they'll have a pretty good estimate, because it's not going to be 100%. They'll have a pretty good estimate of how many people came into the building. And we'll know then if they do their due diligence and try to figure it out. But to call yourself the number one wrestling promotion in the UK because you ran a big show there and you did it once, it's like, okay, fine. This was a grand opening, grand closing. If you did if you robbed the bank, that's a gigantic influx of money, but that's not, that doesn't make you more successful than somebody who is, the president of a bank. Like, I made more money off this bank in one day than you made in 2 years. It's like, yeah, but you robbed it. And then you got one big cash influx, and then that was it. It's like if you hit the lottery, all of a sudden you act like you actually worked for it. And this is literally hitting the lottery, because AEW is really struggling attendance-wise everywhere else. So this is literally a perfect storm of, they have the reach in the UK, and then the audience is greatly anticipating the debut of AEW there. So this is a perfect storm, and they're right to celebrate it. But trust but verify. That's always been my rule when it comes to these kinds of things. And considering how many times they said this is the biggest pro wrestling event of all time on this show, I really, really, really want them to like, how terrible would it be if they kept talking about 80,000 people and then there's not 80,000 people there? There's probably nowhere near. And I keep going back to the Rihanna concert, where the concert was sold out, but the building was empty. And I sincerely hope that is not the case for AEW, because if it is, that you're never going to hear the end of it. Just know that. Just be prepared for it. You'll never hear the end of it. Okay, so hope that every seat got an ass in it, or at least if it's got bald spots, it's not visible, because there's going to be some asshole in the building who's going to be looking for it, and he's going to take a picture in the middle of the show and say, oh, look at all these seats that are not empty, that are not full. It's going to happen, because this is a tribal thing now. It's not even about wrestling anymore. Okay, that's just the news and notes we want to start from the beginning. Any other things that pop into my mind will come up a little bit later. So start the show with the Elite versus Bullet Club Gold, which is the Guns and Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson decked the referee before the match even started, and therefore it just, it became a no contest. They didn't even think to replace the ref, but the Young Bucks' personal referee got knocked out, so they're not going to have the match. This just led to everybody fighting and jumping all over each other. So the Bullet Club Gold and the Elite, they just fight. I finally saw Matt Jackson's bald spot. I was like, sheesh. It's not as bad as John Cena, because, John Cena's bald spot was pretty prominent, but when they called him Balding Buck, I was like, oof, it's real. It's real up in here. Takeshita got the spotlight here with him and Omega in the ring. Omega started to fire up on him, and Takeshita walked off. Okay, I really wish it would have been those two guys working one-on-one, but 6-man tag, I guess. I don't know. From the looks of things, this match was thrown out because of how jam-packed the rest of the show was. Apparently, whoever put this show together, they lost track of time, and things seem to have gone over. But this match is basically just thrown in the bin. It didn't happen. So, whatever. You're not going to get me to complain that I didn't have to watch a Young Bucks match. So, I ain't got no problem with that. All right, so MJF is hanging out with Renee Paquette. This is Renee Paquette Part 1. MJF, we're going to shrink this up, says that he can't get enough of people chanting for him, and he wants this to be the loudest event in history. And he understands the immense pressure that this is the biggest wrestling event in history, but this doesn't happen with all the people who came before him, and that he ran off a list of all the main event talent over the last 20 to 30 years, and says that if he wins, he'll be just like them. He'll be a giant just like them. On the subject of Adam Cole, he said he had never had a real friend, and Adam Cole taught him how to be a friend and taught him how to trust, and that he's more than a friend, he's a brother, and that for the first time, he feels vulnerable and wants everybody to feel vulnerable with him. This was all very anti-masculine. I'm not a big fan of this whole, I'm vulnerable, my heart's open to love. It's like, come on. These are, come on. It just feels very hammy. Like it don't feel like guys are talking like this to each other, It just feels very dramatic. It doesn't feel like, these are guys who really hang out and are really friends with each other. Renee Paquette, Part 3, technically, but we're going to do Adam Cole here, too. Adam Cole claimed that MJF taught him how to be himself again. Then he says he reiterates that winning the AEW World Heavyweight Championship solidifies his legacy and that he needs to win. He got upset when asked about Roderick Strong and then said that there's nothing between him and MJF that says that these two guys cannot be friends. There's no issues with him and MJF. The question wasn't about MJF. The question was about Roderick Strong. And I don't remember an answer about Roderick Strong. But he got really salty. And he's the one showing anger and frustration in this whole thing. He's the one doing all the yelling. It definitely seems like we're setting up for the swerve of Cole turning on MJF. Which, I don't know if that's going to be good for MJF's character, but it certainly wouldn't be good for MJF to just continue being the deal weed and beat up on Adam Cole, because then everybody would have seen that coming. So, I don't know, but I'm very interested in what they're going to do. Fenix wrestled Jon Moxley on this show, and it was the best Jon Moxley match in a long time. Maybe because I was just a fan of Fenix. This match had a very bizarre finish because Jon Moxley did a top rope or middle rope, second rope death rider dropped this guy on his head. He kicks out and then he put him in a sleeper and won the match. I'm like, oh my God. Of all things. Of all things. So Moxley wins. Match was solid enough, really good match as far as I'm concerned. Then the Blackpool Combat Club jumped Fenix after the match and caved his head in with a crowbar. This led to everybody running to the ring to help Fenix. They got cut off by Ortiz, who was swinging, I guess, a sock with rocks in it or something like that. I don't know what's going on. And then a Trine started to play, and then Santana came out. So I'm like, okay. Interestingly enough, Santana came out to join the Blackpool Combat Club. So Santana and Ortiz are actually joining on the same side as the Blackpool Combat Club. Interestingly enough, also, is how Santana basically did not interact at all with Ortiz. He walked right past him when he came to the ring. He did not dap him, hug him, or nothing. He just walked right past him. Eddie Kingston and the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, they came down there to chase off the bad guys. But at this point, the damage had been done. Fenix's head had been caved in. They did a stretcher spot for Fenix to carry him out because Fenix can't go to London because he got visa issues. So they apparently just now found out this week that Fenix can't go to London. So he was booked for a match, and now they have to switch it. It's probably going to end up being 5-on-5, and they won't add a 6th person to either team. So, of course, the big question comes up now. Why is Santana and Ortiz on the side of the Blackpool Combat Club when last I checked, Ortiz was friends with Eddie Kingston? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. Excalibur was yelling about best friends and Santana and Ortiz having a parking lot brawl, but this was 4 years ago. I mean, is it really still relevant? I mean, it would have been nice if we could have took some of this time that they had here and had Santana and Ortiz explain why they're joining the Blackpool Combat Club for this match at the very least, and tell us why it's happening. Maybe it'll happen on Rampage. Maybe it'll happen on Collision. But we definitely needed an explanation to why these guys are on this team. Santana is back. Santana is cool. Ortiz, whatever. He's just there. But, Santana is the HBK of this team. He's dope. So I'm glad he's back. I know he's been out for a long time. So for him to come back and get into a really big match is very cool for me. Very cool. After the match, Eddie Kingston was with Renee Paquette, everybody's favorite. He kept trying to, get her to leave him alone because he's got feelings. My friend Fenix, look at him. He's so cute. He's like a little Rey Mysterio. He's so cute. He's like a young Rey Mysterio. Like Rey, but young. It's like he got the good knees. He's the one with the good knees. And what do you want from me? What do you want? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, huh? What do you want me to do? You want me to fix it? I'll fix it at Wembley. I'll fix it there. Okay? I'll fix it. All right? You want me to fix it? I'll fix it there. So Eddie Kingston will fix it, quote unquote, whatever it is. I guess he's going to perform surgery on Fenix somehow at Wembley to try to fix his brain, I guess, because he got destroyed with a crowbar. So, they finally did something that made sense, and, a guy got his head caved in with a crowbar. Yeah. That seemed like something you would do to, you could write the guy off TV, cave his head in with a crowbar. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Next, Sammy Guevara is hanging out with Renee Paquette, everybody's favorite. 2.0 then confronts Sammy Guevara about helping Chris Jericho. Sammy Guevara says that Chris Jericho is his friend, and that Don Callis is Chris Jericho's friend, and he gave him the benefit of the doubt. People can believe they're friends. People can give their friends a break. So then 2.0 questions whether Chris Jericho will ever be there for Sammy Guevara. It's always Sammy looking out for Chris. When will Chris ever look out for Sammy? I think we've asked this question before. But isn't it odd that Sammy Guevara doesn't have a match at, All In, despite the fact that he's been one of the day one guys from AEW? And I haven't heard of anything that would involve Sammy Guevara. That's very interesting. For you to be a day one AEW guy and then be left off the card. Sheesh. Sheesh. I still don't care about 2.0. And at least I guess they're continuing the storyline, so I can't complain about it. But I don't care about those guys. And I really have a hard time giving a shit about Sammy Guevara too, so whatever. Now, this contract signing between Chris Jericho and Will Ospreay was absolutely humorous for me. Before we get to the funny part, let's get through the content. So Don Callis wants to be involved with the ending of the greatest of all time's career, and that he chose money and power over friendship. Then Ospreay got the microphone and said that he questions whether Jericho's even taking this seriously because this match changes Will Ospreay's life. He says he's going to work an indie date just before Wembley to get up all the money he can so he could take care of his family because he's got a 4-year-old and a wife at home. Then he says that in 6 months, his contract is up in New Japan and that he's the best in the world. He's better than Jericho. He's better than Kenny Omega. He's better than Jay White. He's better than Punk. He's better than everybody. And he respects everything that Jericho has done. But Jericho's reputation and legacy is just rocket fuel to boost his career. So then he signs the contract. Chris Jericho gets the microphone and then does what Chris Jericho does, which is make everything about himself by saying that he takes credit for Will Ospreay's success, saying that everybody on the internet was saying he was going to be in a wheelchair in 5 years if he didn't change his style. And it was Chris Jericho who got the phone call, who made the phone call, I should say, to Will Ospreay to get him to change his style. And now look at him now, top of the business. And it's all because of Chris Jericho. Then Jericho says this is the biggest match of his career, bigger than anything he's ever done, bigger than the Tokyo Dome, bigger than WrestleMania. He says that he's coming. He says that Will Ospreay is coming from the bottom while Jericho is coming from the top, and that Jericho will have to be the best version of himself to beat Will Ospreay, but Will Ospreay is going to have to be the best version of himself to beat Chris Jericho. And then he says, don't make me regret making that phone call. And then they had a pull-apart brawl after Will Ospreay smacked the microphone out of Chris Jericho's hand. This was humorous. As soon as Will Ospreay came out there, I just looked at this and I was like, this guy does not look like he's coming to headline a main event of a show. He looks like he's about to go to a club that plays British trap rap. You know, like I cannot believe he came on TV dressed this way with his hat like that. And then I've never really listened to Will Ospreay either. So why does he sound like he's 700 pounds? Oh, hey, what are you doing, prof? I got to do all of this, prof. My mates. I got to do all this in front of my mates. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Look. Do you? But yeah, you look like a bum. Absolutely look like a bum. And you sound like you just frequent bars. I don't know, maybe it's the antithesis of what his character is supposed to be. And I think that's probably the thing that kind of aggravated me the most, is that isn't his whole gimmick is that he's the Commonwealth Kingpin and all this kind of stuff. That just, gives you the idea that he will wear a suit, look nice in some degree. And he just looks like a guy who drives a cab. Why is Will Ospreay dressed like this? It looks like Chris Jericho is about to get into a fight with a bartender. That's what it looks like. Why don't anybody tell these people how to dress? You're about to, assuming you're about to wrestle in front of 80,000 people. Please learn how to dress for the occasion. But they're playing to their audience because, nobody's going to look at this and say, that Chris Jericho's wrestling some bum. Because if you're watching this show and you've seen Will Ospreay before, then I guess you know who he is and what he's about. But if you're trying to catch the eye of the casual viewer, which they're not, by the way, you look at this guy and you just say, I don't get it. I don't get it. It seems kind of goofy to me, but whatever. I found Will Ospreay talking to be very humorous. He sounded like he was a constipated elephant, which is absolutely hilarious because he's so small. I appreciate Jericho trying to make this sound somewhat personal, but him always trying to, it was me who did blankety blank, very small thing and helped your career. How dare you attack me, Chris Jericho? I'm the greatest. Don't you know how I helped you? I did all this stuff for you. You stupid idiot. Anyway, moving on. So the second actual match on the show, because there was a lot of promos tonight. Nick Wayne and Darby Allin defeat AR Fox and Swerve Strickland. Now, this was something. There's a lot going to be talking about here. This was Nick Wayne jumping all over the place. All right, he did like some kind of double stunner or something like that off the ropes where he basically jumped backwards into AR Fox and Swerve, and they both took a bump with him. They jumped all over each other, just all four of them rather. They just jumped all over each other. Nick Wayne ends up pinning AR Fox to the surprise of virtually no one, if we're being honest. So then after the match, Swerve is cackling like an evil villain and said that he was very disappointed And then he says he was very disappointed in AR Fox. Then he says that why is it that AR Fox blows every opportunity that he gets? He says that this match was all just a test for AR Fox. And he can't beat a child. You can't beat an 18-year-old child. I can't trust you. I certainly can't trust you in front of 80,000 people. So then he told Prince Nana to handle his light work. And Prince Nana fired AR Fox. So AR Fox is fired from the Mogul Embassy after being in it for 3 weeks. He then gets destroyed by Brian Cage. So then Darby Allin and Sting and Nick Wayne, they come back. They chase off Prince Nana and Swerve. Then Darby Allin cuts a promo saying that he will always give AR Fox credit for bringing him into the business. He'll always love him. And lifted him up and hugged him, shake his hand, and all this kind of stuff. So then Darby Allin yells at Swerve that, Wembley is this Sunday. Who do you got? What do you got? What are you going to do? So then Swerve cackles again, and then here comes Christian with Luchasaurus. So then Christian stands at the top of the ramp and cuts this promo on Nick Wayne about his dead dad. Said that he never heard of Nick Wayne's dad, so he must not have been any good. Then he said that his dad was a talentless hack, so he doesn't have much to live up to. Then he says, if I were you, I would stay away from Wembley because I would hate to see the coffin close on somebody you love for the third time. At this point, Christian is getting mega amounts of heat. They're tearing him apart. In terms of, the audience is just very, very brutal when it comes to Christian cutting this promo. And then he says that after the match, he's going to mentor young Nick Wayne. Oh, God. Oh, where do I begin? For starters, I didn't like the match. There's just too many high spots. There's just too much going on. So the match, fuck it. Throw it in the bin. Don't care about that. The storyline, though. All right. So I'm a big fan of stories. This feels very Vince Russo to me. Now, apparently there was another visa issue, and AR Fox also cannot travel to Wembley. So they decided to write a story where he would get fired from the Mogul Embassy, which will explain why he doesn't have to work this match. Do they not realize that just 2 weeks prior, this guy invaded Nick Wayne's home, beat him to a bloody fucking pulp, and forcefully made him call Darby Allin so that they can taunt Darby through the phone? Do they also forget, it was not that long ago, that Darby Allin and Sting crashed AR Fox's school and humiliated him in front of his students? All of that just to write the guy out of the match. For Christ's sake. Now, I get it. There's nothing you can do if the guy can't travel. Then there's nothing you can do. Right? If he can't work the match because he can't go for whatever reason, there's nothing you can do. But you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to do this. Now, in the margins, I always write how they could have improved things. And in the margins, before I knew that AR Fox couldn't travel, I wrote this would have been better if he'd have lost in front of Wembley and then Swerve would have kicked him out. It still would have been too soon, but it would have made more sense. Saying that you can't trust him, and you certainly can't trust him before the 80,000 people, I'm like, you let the guy, you were with him for weeks and weeks already. I don't know. So to me, this feels very slapdash. And then you just throw Christian out there because it's Christian who's going to be his partner. And Christian, who had nothing to do with this at all. So now you have to have Christian hard sell his heat into this match. And he did a good job of it. He did an excellent job of really hammering home the heat of people wanting to see him get beat up. But, Nick Wayne is not in this match. It's not. I said it before. This match should have been Nick Wayne, Darby, and Sting. That's what it should have been from the beginning. Why they kept it as a tag team match or a coffin two-man match, I don't know. All right? Cutting a promo on somebody who's not going to be in the match seems very odd, especially since it was such a vicious promo at that. And he's not even going to get a chance to fight Christian for this. You know? It just seems like we don't know what else to do. So we gotta make it work. And this is probably the best fix they could do. That doesn't mean it's very good, but at least they tried. You know, Christian's been feuding with Darby. He just wrestled Darby and lost. Luchasaurus is going to be wrestling Darby at All Out. So they figured, okay, we'll just tie this all together. And that's the best Band-Aid we could come up with in a short amount of time. I'm not going to begrudge them for trying. You know, they tried to, you know, complete their storyline. But this was not good. This was dumb. You could have done something else. You probably should have just had AR Fox win the match, and then maybe took him out too with a vicious attack or something like that. Because the story between AR Fox and Swerve versus Darby Allin was actually pretty good. And then we never got the AR Fox Darby match. We got a tag team match with them as opponents, but that was it. We never even got the crescendo of that feud. So it seems like to me that every Swerve feud is snake bit in some way, where people just seem to forget large amounts of events that happen in this thing and how vicious and how violent these things are. You know, it's very interesting because Swerve he's been popping off at the mouth lately. One of the things he said is that, you know, WWE's biggest mistake was releasing him. So now he's got this chip on his shoulder because he's going to be wrestling Sting at Wembley, and he did all this crossover stuff, this cool stuff with Rick Ross, which hasn't happened in months, by the way. And he thinks that he's been doing like all of this stuff for AEW. Look, I don't know what he's been doing outside the ring. All I know is what's been going on television has not been the best. I'm a big fan of Swerve. You know, I was a fan of Swerve when he was in NXT. I was hoping he would get a fair shake on the main roster. I will admit that he did not. You know, I think they fired him far too soon. I don't think he got an opportunity at all. I know that he comes across like a Shane Douglas kind of guy where, you know, he feels like he was wrongly mistreated by WWE and now he's got to rub it in their faces. So he's extra motivated in everything that he does. But when you're in a mid-card feud and you're losing more matches than you win and you're not even the focal point of the show, shut the fuck up. Please. Again, like, this is one of those things that you talk that shit when you're the world champion, when you're the main event, when you're near the top of the card. You know, he's like, I'm about to wrestle Sting in Wembley. It's like, who gives a fuck? Magnus wrestled Sting. Matt Morgan wrestled Sting. Who fuck cares? I'm having a match with Sting. There's a bunch of people that had matches with Sting. Like, that's not even that big of a deal anymore. Even if you beat him, he's 60. You know? Like, talk that shit when you get to that point. Because when you look at the entire scope of what Swerve has been doing, his storyline with Keith Lee, an absolute flop. Almost nobody remembers it. The only people who remember it are the people who are saying we never got a singles match between these two. They had a segment in which Swerve broke a brick over Keith Lee's chest. And then they were tag team partners after that, as if it nothing happened. You know, now Keith Lee's off TV. Heavens to Betsy, we don't even know where he is. Like, it's such a sad thing to have this guy who has so much talent, who is stuck in this spot, who's really only on TV because he's feuding with Darby Allin, if we're being honest. You know, if he was feuding with anybody else, I doubt he would be on TV this much. He's not really doing much of anything. He's hanging around with some really low-tier guys like Brian Cage, and for some reason, Big Bill or whatever left his employ, and nothing came of that. It's just, this guy just walked off the job and said, I'm going to go join Ricky Starks. Okay. But the Mogul Embassy was botched from the very beginning. They gave him two big white dudes, what was this, Parker Boudreaux and Trench, and those guys disappeared off the face of the earth. And now the Keith Lee thing was an abortion, and now the AR Fox thing was an abortion. Look, all of this stuff is cool. It's all very cool. I was 100% there for the Keith Lee Swerve feud. I thought it was going to be good. But then it was summarily dropped for no real reason. I was saying the past couple of weeks how I've enjoyed the Darby Allin Extended Universe. And now it's basically being dropped for, again, no good reason. Even if AR Fox can't make the match, you do it on Dynamite the next week, or you do it on Collision the day before, or something like that. I don't know. But, well, I guess you can't do it the day before. Whatever. But there has to be a better way to handle this situation than what they did. And what they did was not good. And then, having your match rigged like this, just jerked around like this, and then going on Twitter being like, oh, I'm doing all of this great shit. It's like, they're still slapdashing everything that you do. Everything that you've been doing the last couple of weeks has been an absolute pastiche of forgotten ideas and misbegotten pushes for people who don't matter. It's all been very unfortunate because it ain't his fault. It ain't his fault. He's been doing his best. God bless him. All right, so we're backstage again with FTR and the Young Bucks. Oh my God. Oh Lord. The Young Bucks say that they're made men. They don't need to beat FTR. FTR needs to beat them. Then Cash talked about pulling gun on the Young Bucks. No, he didn't say that. He did say he was going to shoot them in the face. He didn't say that either. Then Dax said something about this being personal. Then he said this is beyond titles, that the only team standing in their way of being the greatest team of all time is the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks then start talking about how they brought FTR to AEW, and that the Young Bucks will only get their flowers when they retire and hang up their sneakers. And while and FTR will only be mentioned as the guys who were talked about on a YouTube show. So then Dax, this is how I feed my daughter. My daughter this. My daughter gonna eat Wembley. My daughter loves Wembley. She gonna show up in Wembley. She gonna be showing on my shoulders, and she gonna be very happy. And we gonna eat hot dogs and we gonna eat fish and chips and all this kind of stuff. Talking about how the Young Bucks jumped all over their popularity, and the fuck the revival and all this kind. Even though he didn't say that, this was nothing. They were trying to sell this thing as the two best teams in a generation or whatever wrestling each other. And it seems that the only people who truly believe that are in that room or writing this shit or the very low IQ people who are buying into this stuff. I don't know if anybody truly believes that the Young Bucks are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. I just don't know if anybody truly believes that. I think that Raj Giri got into some trouble on Twitter with the AEW fans by talking about how the Young Bucks are not a draw, which is a fact. That was nothing but facts. When was the last time the Young Bucks was a part of something outside of some kind of hardcore blood fest that increased the ratings? It's been a while, So, everybody's looking at this thing and saying to themselves, like, bro, let's just get through this. Cash, he didn't seem to have a lot of enthusiasm. Everybody's watching Cash Wheeler, for Christ's sake. He didn't seem to have a lot of enthusiasm. Dax tried to cover for him, but everybody was sitting here like, Cash, would you like to, and I told you this was going to happen, right? They was talking about they was going to do a face-to-face interview, and they did a pre-tape, which everybody knew they was going to do. For Christ's sake, they refused to bring that guy in front of an audience. He didn't molest a child or anything like that. He just, maybe pulled a gun on a guy. That's not the worst thing in the world. It's not good, but it ain't the worst thing he could have done to somebody, for Christ's sake. He's not in any real trouble here. Come on. People was just wondering if he was going to show up to the show. Come on, he can go out in front of a live crowd. But he did come out to a live crowd because he went out there to save the Young Bucks earlier that night. Okay. Ruby Soho wrestled Sky Blue. Look, let me tell you something about Sky Blue, man. So they had a pair of promos. Ruby Soho cut a promo where she talked about how either Toni Storm or Saraya was going to bring the women's title back to the Outcast. Okay, fine. Then she says, but she also has her eyes on Chris Statlander in the TBS title. Okay, fine. Not a big deal. But then Sky Blue talked. And she says, I am so sick of the outcasts. And we had our match at Rampage and we beat you. And, you had to take your frustrations out on us. And then so I'm going to take my frustrations out on you. And it cut off because Ruby Soho attacked her in the in the picture. So they just dropped the rest of her promo. Sky Blue has no personality. I said this before. I did an entire video about how she's a pretty girl with no personality. But let me tell you something. I've watched Sky Blue in this match this time. I didn't just look at her booty. I actually watched her match. Sky Blue is NXT level up tier wrestler. All right. If she was on NXT level up, I don't think anybody would be too upset about how she performs. But she's not that good. All right. And I know a lot of people will get really wrapped up in that booty and they just start thinking that she's great. Look at her ass. But she's kind of mid in the ring. All right. She's not that great. She's very young. I think she's still pretty green. She ain't been in the business that long, which is why I say she's NXT level up tier. But she definitely needs to go through a battery of promos and how to have convincing offense. How to have convincing facial expressions. There's just a lot of stuff that she's not really all that good at. But she's cute, and people are willing to give a pass to cute girls all the time. Nobody can get a pass like a cute girl can. So Sky Blue can continue being mid for the next 2 years. Same thing with Red Velvet. It took forever, for people to start saying that Red Velvet sucked because she was cute, and people wanted to be like, "Oh, she's so cute. Look at her." But then other people was looking at themselves like, "This girl fucking sucks." It took the AEW botches account to really make it a big deal. And Sky Blue ain't gonna kill anybody. She ain't that bad, but she ain't gonna blow your mind either. She's a good look, and that's about it. I don't know, man. They give her a lot of time too, and she's not very good. But Ruby Soho, of course, is a very solid mid-card wrestler. Not a problem. Roderick Strong talked with Renee, said that we're going to see the real Adam Cole or the real MJF this Sunday at Wembley. All right, you're threatening us to do something. Fine, whatever. Then the Acclaimed came out there. They called out the House of Black, and then summarily got the shit kicked in when the House of Black actually showed up. Billy Gunn came out there to make the save, and he cut a promo saying that essentially the House of Black have done it. They crossed the line, and that they tried to destroy his Hall of Fame career and try to piss all over it. So now it's all or nothing one more time. And said that, the Acclaimed versus House of Black, but Daddy Ass will not be making the trip. And his place will be a badass. And everybody popped. The pop when he first came out there was huge too, by the way. And badass Billy Gunn will be making an appearance at Wembley Stadium. And I was like, okay, this energized me. This is very good. I knew they were going to do this, and I still think it's very solid storytelling to have him sort of, I don't want to say fake the retirement, because the retirement can still be pretty legitimate and he could also say, enough's enough, I can't stand no more. All that stuff can still be very true. So I knew they were going to do this. It was the right decision. Now they have to give the trios belts to Daddy Ass and the Acclaimed. That place will explode if they do that. However many people show up in the building, that place will explode if the Acclaimed win the titles. And they should win the titles. Because it's about time for Malachi Black to actually wrestle some singles matches and start winning some singles titles. He's been in AEW for 2 fucking years. And he ain't wrestled for a singles title yet. Amazing how many game changers came in and got summarily stuffed in a tag team, for fuck's sake. Speaking of tag teams, we got a tag team main event with the Broken Down Hardys versus Aussie Open. And a match that made me want to fucking cry. Because not only did I knew the Hardys was going to lose, but they lost in a main event of the show to a tag team full of the most generic gingerbread white fucks that you could have ever possibly picked out of a cornfield. These fucking guys suck. And they beat the Hardys. Come on. That's the one thing I hate about wrestling. I mean, it is what it is. They're trying to help the kids and put them over. But my goodness, bro. Watching. Just fucking retire, man. Like, watching Matt try to do anything is tough, you know? And to see that they're saying, like, oh, you guys are going to put over Aussie Open. Like, oof. Oh, God. We know Jeff can't make the trip to London. We know that can't happen. But I'm sitting here like, damn. You know, I really want more for the Hardys. But at the same time, what more can you give them? Like, they have nothing left in those old bones. You know, but this is a real low point for me. To watch them get beat by one of the most generic teams ever in Aussie Open, man. That sucks. That hurts the hard way, bro. It's almost like their career has gone full circle. Where they were job guys when I was a kid. Now I'm a grown man. They're back to being job guys again. That sucks, bro. There's no positivity to this. They're just lending their name to being, you know, swept up in this Aussie Open thing. Anyway, Aussie Open gets on the microphone, says there's not going to be a kangaroo kick. This led to MJF and Adam Cole coming out there beating them up, threatening them with the double clothesline. They ducked it. And then MJF and Adam Cole faced off against each other to go off the air. Oh, what a Dynamite. Some people like this. It's definitely a step up from last week because they actually tried to pull some angles this week. So they definitely wanted to really hard sell all in. So they did a lot of promos, a lot of sit-down promos that were edited quite a bit. I can't say they were very strong. A lot of the MJF and Adam Cole promos were basically just clips of them doing buddy stuff and then them talking about that. The Young Bucks and FTR, they look like they didn't want to be in the same room together. It's very uncomfortable. I don't like either team at this point, so it's very tough for me to give a shit. The contract signing completely unnecessary. Will Ospreay dresses like a bum. Jericho tries to dress like he's a member of Demolition. Now he's rigged a way for Fozzy to actually play at Wembley. So you know Jericho's just getting whatever he wants out of this deal. Probably to convince Tony Khan this wouldn't be happening without him. 3 years ago I made the call. Or whatever. It's ridiculous. The only good thing I think here was Billy Gunn's return. I thought that was excellent. I liked the right around when it comes to Fenix. Because Fenix can't travel, so they just basically had him get injured and taken out. So I like that. Motivated the baby faces. Left in the lurch about Santana and Ortiz. If we could have gotten maybe, if the seeds were planted about, you know, them guys joining or whatever, I probably would have been more excited. I am very happy for Santana, who seems to be like a regular grounded homeboy, to come back and get a big spot. So I'm trying to be happy for him while also being fair and criticizing that this comes across as very Russo-ish. We just want to throw some guys out there. So that's going to be... I don't care about the Stadium Stampede thing anyway. It's a dumb AEW gimmick. It's stupid. But it does what it does. So I was happy to see Santana. I was thrilled to see Billy Gunn, only in the context of this story, not that I'm just a big Billy Gunn fan. I think the AR Fox thing, I don't know why it ended up being the way that it was, but it ended up being the way that it was, man. Poor guy. Can you imagine? Look at how many people was on Twitter like, my goodness, AR Fox is going to wrestle in front of 80,000 people and nobody deserves it more. Whoop! He got written off the show. He got fired and written out of the show. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, goodness. Does he get paid anyway? No, probably not, right? Anyway, Dynamite mid. You know, it wasn't the worst episode. It coming off the worst episode. Last week's episode was absolutely dreadful. This week's episode was just okay. You know, at least 2 solid matches. Promos still weren't that great, even though they were, sit downs. A lot of Renee, maybe too much Renee, and maybe that's the only problem I had. So, what do you guys think? Let me know. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap.